Hello, universe. It's been a while since we had an update, and we thought we would share this with you all. This is different than anything we've ever done before. Strap in and buckle up if you're gonna stick around for this ride because it's way more complex than anything we've done before, and we've done some pretty complex stuff before. So, for us to explain this to you, we're actually going to bring in one of our AI assistants to try and help explain it to you. And we'll jump in when it's time to show you what's what, to give you macroscopic view of what this is. It's a squeeze detector strategy and indicator, and it's also can be wired into quote unquote external. They're all within Tradingview for certain symbols or tickers, and depending on your data subscription. But we're gonna let AI kind of start this off, and we'll jump in when we need to. So here is the video where we're going to walk you through this EMCS squeeze detector strategy.
Walk you through the EMCS squeeze detector strategy and its paired confirmed bar companion indicator for Tradingview. I'm going to explain what they do, how they work together, and how to set them up correctly, including the optional external inputs. The EMCS squeeze detector strategy is built to identify and trade squeeze-style market events. That includes upside forced covering moves and downside long flush moves. Rather than acting like a basic crossover or momentum system, it is designed to detect when pressure is building, when that pressure reaches maturity, and when the move starts to fade or exhaust. The paired companion indicator uses the same underlying signal model, but it is built to mirror confirmed bar strategy behavior more cleanly on the chart. Its purpose is to give you cleaner visual alignment, better chart side workflow, and more flexible alerting handling. The simplest way to think about this pair is that the strategy is for testing and evaluation, while the companion indicator is for chart confirmation and alert flexibility.
I'm going to jump in here. So the strategy produces the strategy report, right? These are the back testing results. And this is what we're interested in. The reason why we made this a paired strategy indicator is because with the indicator, we have far more potentials for alerts. So I'll give you a snapshot on this. We have all of these different alerts available to us on the indicator versus compared to the strategy. You can see very limited alerts. It's essentially just if the strategy fires. So that's a limitation within Tradingview, and we can mitigate that by pairing a strategy with an indicator. It's generally not necessary in a lot of circumstances, like all of our other script strategies and indicators. You don't have to do this. If you want to visualize, like for example on our blended strategy, if you want to visualize some of the other stuff that's happening here, you may have to add the indicators just because they're not built in to be plotted for something you can see. They're just part of the math. But for this, it opens up a whole different level of alerts. And alerts aren't just for getting notifications on your phone or your PC or laptop or tablet or whatever, right? They can be used with webhooks with brokerages that support it for trade execution, right? So this is why this is an important part 2 of our tutorial of our new trading strategy and indicator combo in Pinescript for TradingView that we developed with EMCS.store. This, as we described, is a squeeze detection mechanism, or that's what it's designed to be. And we're gonna go ahead and let one of our AI assistants continue to explain this where we left off. So we were talking about why we made a companion indicator for this strategy, that being in particular more flexible alert handling. So we'll pick it up from there and we'll jump in when we need to.
At a high level, these tools are looking for squeeze event structure. They use price behavior, volume behavior, VWAP structure, optional crypto open interest, and optional external crowding and flow confirmation to determine when a squeeze event is starting, when it peaks, and when it ends. That's why the chart uses a start, peak, and end structure instead of only printing simple buy and sell events. The goal
Just show that to you here and let it continue.
is to map the life cycle of the move, not just flash a signal. The strategy itself supports 3 entry styles: aggressive, conservative, and late. Aggressive is the earliest participation. Conservative waits for stronger confirmation before engaging. Late waits until the move is matured, and then looks for a pullback and continuation style entry. The strategy also lets you choose trade direction, so you can run it in both directions, long only or short only. It also includes functionality to base stop loss and target handling, along with adaptive fee behavior that adjusts sensitivity based on volatility and trade conditions. To set this up properly, start with the external feeds first.
So we need to talk about some of this. I'm going to show you exactly how this is done. So, and I'll also show you what the AI was talking about here. So there's a lot of settings within this. You can use Kim-Sung style change filters, require crowding, force flow confirmation, use crypto open interest, and we need to talk about also one of the things here where not all symbols will support this. We have this currently on Binance perpetual future contract because Coinbase has the liquidation data, funding rates, all this other external quote unquote inputs that we can wire into both this strategy and this indicator. And to be clear, so this is where that comes into place. To be clear, this still does work without these. It just has different data with them. So these can be enabled, but they need to be wired in correctly. They're not wired in by default. And so what the AI is getting at here is what you need to do is add, first of all, it has to be on a symbol in TradingView that supports this data. Not all symbols do. Like, for example, they do not yet have the data for the Coinbase perpetual futures contract. So these, right, you can see they don't have that data yet. They may in the future, but there's only certain symbols that they have this data for that you can wire these external quote unquote inputs. And when it's talking about external inputs, it's talking about inputs external to the script of the strategy, the source code. So it's not talking about wiring in something with an API, an external data feed, like truly external of TradingView. It's essentially piggybacking on other indicators for other data, which can be really beneficial actually, because there are limitations within TradingView for the amount of data, like the processing speed, how long it takes to calculate a script. We made another strategy recently and it took too long to calculate. Basically, under R, we have a premium plan. I think there's one level up above us, but like the scripts have to calculate in a certain amount of time depending on your plan, and we're not paying for that other stuff, and it only extends the calculation time by 20 seconds. So getting these quote unquote external data feeds to be able to wire in quote unquote external data and feed it to the scripts, to the strategy, and to the indicator, essentially increase the capacity that the individual scripts have. So we'll show you how to do this. It's not that complicated, but there's a specific way that you need to follow in order to make it work right. So to do this, you need to go to add indicators and scroll down to fundamentals and over to derivatives. And it's best practice, from our understanding, to add these to the chart before adding the strategy and the indicator. What we understand is the strategies and indicators can only pull data from already added indicators. So it's important to add these first. That may change in the future, but for now, that's the best practice understanding of this. And y'all may notice, as compared to this chart, the dashboard on the left is from the indicator and the one on the right is from the strategy, and we don't have the one on the right for the strategy because we changed symbols intra-bar, right? This is a 30-minute chart, so it pulls the dashboard in real time on the indicator, but it waits, especially if you change time frames or symbols, it'll wait until confirmation of the bar close, right? This is how we prevent repainting and false results, right? The strategy has to be based off of bar close. Otherwise, it's garbage, right? Essentially, that's something we've learned over the years and makes sense, right? It should be, I guess, obvious, but it's not. And a lot of people don't understand that. So this will populate in about 3 minutes and 36 seconds. And in the meantime, we're going to just have to deal with the indicator dashboard. But let's let AI continue the description now that I've shown you how to first add these quote unquote external inputs for these other different metrics it's using in this calculation, and we'll continue.
This makes the source binding process cleaner because the source dropdowns in the EMCS tools can only be manually pointed to plots that already exist on the chart. Once the external feeds are loaded, then add the EMCS squeeze detector strategy to the chart. The default profile is set up around ETH perpetual style testing, and the intended starting point is the 30-minute time frame. That is the cleanest place to begin before you experiment with other markets or time frames. After that, add the companion indicator to the same chart. Now open the settings for the strategy. The main sections are core, thresholds, crypto open interest, optional external feeds, visuals, adaptive regime, and strategy. In the core section, you'll see the main structural settings such as lookback, ATR length, VWAP band, ATR multiple, and the optional change filter controls. For most users, the defaults are the right place to start. In the thresholds section, you'll find the main event sensitivity controls. This is where you define how much abnormal price expansion, volume expansion, VWAP displacement is required before the tool begins to classify something. This means that event starts, how strong it must become to be considered mature, and how much fading is required before the event is considered finished. In the crypto open interest section, the main toggle is use crypto OI. If you want open interest included in the loan, enable that option, and make sure the symbol you're using actually has that open interest symbol on Tradingview. If you are unsure, start with the default and verify that your data source is valid. Now for the most
Not
important
all
setup
sources
step,
are.
the external inputs. The optional external inputs do not bind themselves automatically. those source dropdowns to other scripts for you. That means if you want those external confirmations to work properly, you must manually point each source to the correct indicator output. Go into the optional external feeds section and wire them as follows.
Right. So we need to take a look at this. So once you've added liquidations, funding rate, long short ratio accounts, short account percentage, crypto open interest before adding the strategy and indicator, you'll then be able to choose. So by default, these are off. So you'll then be able to choose from a number of tons of different options here. So you have to pick the proper ones. Use external funding source. This one's obvious, right? But use external up squeeze liquidation is less obvious. So this is for when shorts are getting liquidated. Use down squeeze liquidation source is for when longs are getting liquidated, right? This is a squeeze to the downsize. And then external long short ratio source, there's a few different options here with percentages. You want the actual ratio, so that's important.
For the funding input, enable the funding toggle and set the funding source to funding rate. Funding rate. For the upside liquidation input, enable the up squeeze liquidation toggle and set the UP liquidation source to liquidations, short liquidations. For the downside liquidation input, enable the down squeeze liquidation toggle and set the down liquidation source to liquidations, long liquidations. For the long short ratio input, enable the ratio toggle and set the long short ratio source to long short ratio accounts. Long short ratio accounts. That mapping matters. Short liquidations are used to help confirm upside squeeze behavior, and long liquidations are used to help confirm downside squeeze behavior. Do not swap those accidentally. If you do not have those external inputs available, you can still use the strategy without them. In that case, simply disable those toggles and let the model operate from its internal price, volume, VWAP, and optional open interest framework.
We thought we'd continue on with part 3 of this series of our new indicator and strategy combo in Pinescript for Tradingview. This continues to perform very interestingly, and we thought we'd pick up where we left off last time, which is beginning the tutorial about the adaptive regime settings. So we're going to go ahead and let AI continue here, one of our AI assistants, and we'll jump in again when we need to.
But still use the strategy without them. In that case, simply disable those toggles and let the model operate from its internal price, volume, VWAP, and optional open interest framework. Next is adaptive regime. This section allows the script to adapt itself across different volatility and trend environments. In simple terms, the model can behave differently when markets are trending strongly versus dropping, and when volatility is expanded versus compressed. My recommendation is to leave adaptive regime rules enabled when you first start testing.
So I'll show this to you. This setting down here, the adaptive regime, I recommend setting it to whatever your look back bars are at to start out with. I don't have proof of this, but this seems to be intuitively at least sane, because by default both these are set to 200. You can see we've modified that here to match what we set it to on this testing. So you'll have to experiment for yourself whether or not you want to leave it at the starting default of 200 or set it to, if you even choose to change any of these defaults like the look back bars. But our intuition is that it's likely better to keep it in line, because remember, this adaptive regime is designed to adapt to current market conditions. So, and with historical data as the baseline, and so in that sense, you could say it's probably backwards looking, but it also makes a lot of sense, because while the market can turn on a dime and into different phases from uptrend to a downtrend to a sideways chop, it at least gives it some context to adjust. So that's what this is intended to achieve.
It's better to learn the baseline behavior before changing those settings. Then go to the strategy section. This is where you define how the strategy engages signals. You can choose trade direction as both long only or short only. You can choose entry style as aggressive, conservative, or late. You can also configure whether the strategy exits on end, exits on peak, uses ATR stops, and uses ATR profit targets.
Right, so I can show you that as well. This gets down into the strategy settings. Like it said, you can choose a trade direction of both, or if you only want long, or if you only want short. And you can choose between, as it described, the aggressive, conservative, or late. On this testing result, we have it set to aggressive, and you'll notice that it's not closing the position at the end of these squeezes, because the way we have it set up with pyramiding and entries and exits, it on these settings, it doesn't end on these signals. What it's on this particular configuration, it's exiting, right? You can see went short here, back here, it was long back here, exited longs, went short here, it didn't exit the short there, kept adding to the short position actually, which is interesting, right? And then exited here when it switched to a long squeeze. So it's a interesting way to look at the markets. It's definitely different than anything we've done before, but that isn't what it's set up to do by default. That's just from some of our experimentation looking at this. And everything else, what it's talking about with the peak squeeze detection, the end squeeze detection, like all that's built in the strategy too. You can do the conservative shorts and longs style, or you have a lot of different options to choose from here. So we'll continue on.
If you are new to the tool, the clean starting template is this. Trade direction set to both, entry style set to conservative, exit on end turned on, exit on peak turned off, and ATR stop and target enabled. That gives you a structured and balanced starting profile without overcomplicating the first test. Now let's talk about the companion indicator. The key to using the pair correctly is consistency. If you want the indicator to mirror the strategy as closely as possible, the settings on the indicator should match the settings on the strategy. That means the same look back, the same thresholds, the same open interest settings, the same external source bindings, the same adaptive settings, the same entry style, and the same ATR risk settings.
Right, that's another thing I didn't mention. The ATR settings, when enabled, can stop you out or take exits for a profit based off of ATRs and other things. And what they're talking about here, or it's talking about here, is the fact that for obviously both the strategy and the companion indicator, all the settings have to be the same, right? I mean, if you want the alerts on the indicator, because again, this is the main reason we built the companion indicator, it's because it gives us a lot more options and flexibility with alert behavior, which is important for both notifications, but also if you're using it with a trading bot through web hooks. And so these two indicators have to match perfectly if you want them to behave the same.
Settings. If the settings drift apart, the pair will drift apart. In the companion indicators visual section, you'll see options such as show VWAP bands, show regime background, show start, peak, and end labels, show entry and exit labels, show dashboard, color bars by active squeeze, and freeze real-time bar to confirmed close. That last option is especially important. Freeze real-time bar to confirmed close is enabled by default, and that is intentional. It allows the indicator to stay aligned with confirmed bar strategy logic instead of reacting to intra-bar movement that may disappear by candle close.
Right. This is important because, as I mentioned in a previous video, the indicator as displayed by the dashboard for the indicator, and again, this is the dashboard for the strategy, the indicator is painting essentially in real time. You can't see that right now because there's not an active squeeze according to this currently, but when, for example, both of these and all of them are being painted in real time, on this bar you'll see a slightly lesser shaded, and you may have to play around with the shading settings, signal indicating that it was still in the short at this point. But it didn't fire the alert, just like the strategy based off of bar close, until this bar had closed. So that's really another important feature in this.
If your goal is cleaner strategy alignment, leave that setting on. Once both scripts are loaded and configured, here's what you want to watch. First, watch the start, peak, and end labels. These show you where the squeeze event begins, where it matures, and where it fades. Second, watch the VWAP bands and the regime background. These help frame the broader context around the event. Third, use the dashboard to read the model state without needing to understand or expose the underlying engine details. And if you're using the companion indicator, enable entry and exit labels plus alerts if you want a cleaner notification workflow. The biggest mistake people make with tools like this is treating them like simple green light, red light systems. That is not the point. The point is to interpret the event lifecycle and decide whether you want early participation, stronger confirmation, or a later continuation style entry. If alerts are your main priority, the companion indicator is a better motivator for that job. The strategy is best used for testing and evaluation. The indicator is better for confirmed bar chart workflow and alert flexibility. So that's overall workflows. The external feeds first and the strategy second. It's the clean starting template one more time. Starting with the time frame, the external feed indicators first if you plan to use them, and the strategy second, and the companion indicator third. Mainly on confirmed bars while giving you better chart side usability and learning. The most important part of the whole setup is making sure the optional external inputs are manually wired correctly and will not configure themselves
Alright. Yep. And use proper risk management. Tune it to a workflow. As always, this is not financial advice. We are simply providing to our clients to do with them what they choose. So, told y'all this is going to be a doozy, and that's why we broke it down into 3 parts. Hope y'all liked this video, and if you like our content, like and subscribe, and be well, trade smart, and manage your risk as always.